Attention, your paradigm is about to shift at the intersection of fact and reason. You're entering Kingston Country.
I'm Dan Kingston, and you're listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.
Will a transcript coming out of this White House be fully trusted, right? The president.
That's why the audio tape. You used to work at the NSA, the National Security Agency, which records a lot of international conversations. I assume they would have something.
No, so it's unlikely that certainly the National Security Agency is not going to release of its own.
Not release it necessarily, but have the tape.
I answer that. Don't think that I can answer that.
All right, never mind.
Wow, that's CNN regular and former NSA attorney Susan Hennessey. Of course, the news now today is that Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced the House is going to launch the formal impeachment inquiry. The real story, or at least the story behind the scenes they don't want you looking at, is the embedded NSA spies in the mainstream media, including, they're just so blatant about it, this NSA official Susan Hennessey, that's a national security agency. Why is this such an important story if you don't even know, if you're not already on the same page? I don't know what page you're on. They're basically using information against the president. If they've recorded all of the president's phone calls, they're listening to his communications, and also congressmen and women and officials are all being listened to by the shadow government that runs in parallel with its own black money and secret revenue sources, oftentimes funded from drug money in different countries, including Afghanistan and South America. But what's going on with these embedded moles, and they're so blatant about it, aren't they? They say in her caption, NSA attorney, they don't even hide it. They don't even hide it. Now, Wolf Blitzer, poor Wolf Blitzer, he's too stupid to be an NSA informant or anything like that. Maybe the deep state was thinking about contacting Wolf Blitzer, but you have to have a certain level of intelligence to be a spy. Let's face it. This NSA attorney, Susan Hennessey, she looks the part, KGB kind of thing, perfectly manicured, a perfect haircut, speaks eloquently, very Ivy League, good looking, very good looking. You would expect that she's a type of person in a James Bond movie that would seduce somebody into handing over the nuclear secrets. So what is she doing working at CNN, being a CNN regular? How many of these types are there? They're bought off at the top, or maybe they just work in the NSA themselves, the people, the producers that are scheduling these things. Wolf Blitzer, good for him, though, for asking a tough question. I mean, what's the point of having an NSA attorney on as a regular, right? If you're not going to ask some questions. Good for Blitzer. But Nancy Pelosi opening the formal impeachment inquiry. Now, this is in response to Trump's effort to, I guess, allegedly pressure Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. And of course, Joe Biden is also has some shady dealings. I guess his son Hunter in Ukraine is being alleged from Trump. So now this kind of looks like a political thing. You see, the time to move on impeachment was ages ago. I felt like when the real momentum, when the Mueller report dropped. Now, before Mueller gave his really sad testimony, started wondering about this guy Mueller. I mean, for the people saying that Trump has dementia, I think it was a shock to see Mueller, to see what a case of dementia really looks like. The momentum was just died at that point. And I got to tell you something, a lot of you aren't going to like to hear it, but this president kind of has it coming, doesn't he? If the House does, I don't think they're going to have the votes. They're going to try, they're too late. And now it looks political. At this point, it looks political. And they got to beat him in an election if that's what they want to do. But if they were going to move on impeachment, they should have done that when they had the momentum with the Mueller report, before Mueller got kind of exposed for being an impotent leader of this of investigation, right? It turns out he wasn't even leading it. Who knows where he was? Was he out to lunch the whole time, I guess, while other people were leading it? And it showed in his testimony. So they lost the momentum, and now they're trying to get it back. This isn't over Russia. This is over Ukraine, something completely different, nothing to do with the Russia investigation or Mueller, something completely different. And Trump's able to say, look, Biden's son had some corrupt dealings too. Now, were they legal? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe what Trump did was legal. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We do need to get the source document that apparently Trump is going to release with the transcript of this. And are there more events? Was there just this one event connected to the whistleblower? Were there more events? Who knows? But it is kind of, to me, eerie how you have members of the deep state in the mainstream media talking about taking down Trump, talking about the whistleblower like they know what's going on. Maybe they do because they have insider knowledge, or maybe the whistleblower is a revenge tactic to get back at President Trump, because you have to understand that the guy, for whatever reason, he's not going to take orders from nobody. And the NSA, the deep state, they're not used to that. They have all the information on everyone. It's easy for them to make a call, the deep state officials, whoever they come in, whoever's representing them at the time, to make a phone call and say, hey, we do have all of your phone calls, just a reminder. And if you don't play along, we could very well release it. Maybe it might be kind of embarrassing. They can't play that game with Trump because he's already been embarrassed. There's nothing left to embarrass him. He's been a racist, a rapist, all these things alleged against him. And there's nothing more that can be alleged or thrown at him that hasn't already been alleged. So at this point, it's kind of impossible to get him on the politics of the past. They have to create a new playbook. They're scrambling. They're scrambling because they don't know what to do. This is the latest, perhaps, in the playbook, getting back at Trump with this whistleblower who has not come forward. Will we ever see who the whistleblower is? One problem the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, and all the people that you follow, maybe you don't because you can't take it anymore, so you don't listen to them anymore. That's probably more like it. They hype it. They hype it so much to where it's when it comes out, it doesn't look so bad anymore. Not compared to what they talked about for, the 48 hours previously about how bad it could be. And then they have to walk themselves back when they have to say, well, it's still bad, people. Trust me, it's still bad. Just because it's not as bad as I said it was. It's still bad, right, Joe? Oh, yeah, Bob. It's still bad. So breathlessly, right? Breathlessly. And it becomes phony. It becomes the sky is falling and you get sick of it. Now it looks like a political thing. You're going into an election year. Most Americans are saying, look, if you at this point just beat him in the election, it looks political now.
This is Kingston Country.
I'm flying today. Feels good. Feels good to be on the microphone to talk to you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of Kingston Country. And if you've been watching the news and following on Twitter, you've seen the climate hysteria is in 110% full swing. The politicalization of environmentalism is a real travesty to any progress that's hoping to be made for clean air, for clean water, and for, yes, bringing down CO2. But right now it's CO2 bad, Republicans bad, Democrat good. And we forget so quickly that environmentalism used to be bipartisan. Everybody used to agree that we should have clean air, and we should have clean water, and we should do things to protect the environment because we only have one planet, yada, 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 all that stuff. How quickly we forget Teddy Roosevelt, known as a conservationist president. Yes, a Republican. He doubled the national parks, added 230 million acres of public lands, and much of that was set aside for national forests. 150 million acres set aside for national forests. Yes, a Republican, Teddy Roosevelt. He was quoted, "We have become great because of the lavish use of our resources. But the time has come to inquire seriously what will happen when our forests are gone. when the coal, the iron, the oil, and the gas are exhausted, when the soils have still further impoverished and washed into the streams, polluting the rivers, blah, blah, blah. Are you still listening? I lost you. You stopped listening. You get the point. Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican, and he believed in good environmental stuff. It wasn't Republican bad. It wasn't Democrat good. It was, we have to protect the forests. We have to protect the environment. Richard Nixon established the EPA. The Clean Water Act was signed by Nixon in 1970. And he was quoted, he said, "I think that 1970 will be known as the year of the beginning, in which we really begin to move on the problems of clean air and clean water." So what happened? Did he lie and drop the ball? No. The American conversation about protecting the environment began in the 1960s, you see, when Rachel Carson had published her attack on pesticides. Remember Silent Spring in 1962? This is from the EPA.gov website. You remember Silent Spring? We all learned about that in school. Maybe you read about it when it came out. Around this time, astronauts were photographing the Earth from space. So people were becoming aware of the finite resources. So in 1970, as a result of the public concerns about air and litter, President Nixon presented the House and Senate a groundbreaking 37-point message on the environment. What did he request? What did he request? Billions for the improvement of water facilities, asking for national air quality standards and stringent guidelines to lower motor vehicle emissions, launching federally funded research to reduce automobile pollution. Lots of good stuff. It wasn't CO2 bad, Republican bad, Democrat bad. Anyway, this led to the establishment of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. It was never a political issue. The environment was always something that we agreed on. But now it's been used. It's been used by an ideology to say capitalism is bad. And capitalism has contributed to the destruction of the environment. Therefore, we must switch to a more socialist, thus a Democrat control of government. And it's the only way to save the planet. In fact, the whole planet will end unless we elect Democrats. It's phony. It's a fallacy. It's no way to save the planet. It's no way to clean up the air and the water. And by the way, CO2 is not the only thing wrong with the environment. The air is polluted. The water is polluted. The lead in the drinking water causes violence. It causes rage. There's brain scans that show the lead poison, the lead toxicity in the drinking water that's been found in schools and most impoverished communities, but also upscale communities as well. Nobody is immune to lead poisoning. Well, these brain scans, they show dead regions in the brain that have been impacted, and it impacts boys more than girls. That's right. The aggression caused from lead poisoning impacts boys more than girls, men more than women, adding a whole new meaning, you could say, to toxic masculinity. Maybe has something more to do with what we're drinking in the water. And how did I come to all this? This wasn't something that somebody suggested to me. And I'm not patting myself on the back. Well, I guess I am. Because I started thinking about the violence in this country, the epidemic of gun violence and also mass violence. And it came to think, what the hell's in the drinking water? Is it in the water? Could it be in the water? Something everybody drinks. You have boys failing in school at higher levels than girls. And you have these rage epidemic of gun violence affecting men more than women. And you have school shootings all over the country. It never used to be a thing. We've always had guns. We've always had guns in this country, but we've never had this level of mass violence. Could it be that the pipes, they're aging? The infrastructure is old in this country and it's not been replaced. And there's no talk of pipes that are leaking lead into the groundwater. There's no talk of that. No. It's all CO2 is the boogeyman. CO2. And what am I saying is not, let's not decrease our emissions. The idea is, let's expand the topic and not make this into an ideological virtue, groupthink discussion where when you deviate 1 centimeter, now you're treasonous, part of the insurrection, no longer part of the club. You're now part of the problem. Can't we take a step back and realize to solve these problems, whether it's gun violence or the climate change, which is going to be a problem, but not the number one problem facing America, but certainly is a problem. We have to come together and think outside the box and compromise and come to agreement to get as much good done for this country as possible. Working together is the only way to achieve that.
Kingston Country. You've been listening to the Dan Kingston Podcast.